Well, it's great to welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod, Super Rugby CEO Jack Mesley. And Jack, that was a good weekend of upsets.
Yeah, I'm still getting over what was a very big Saturday and a great weekend all round. Some massive upsets that have thrown the comp into a really interesting place just beyond the halfway stage.
Do you watch every game? Are you
Yeah.
just
Yep.
into the whole thing?
Well, I try to get to a game every week if I can, and then try to catch up on all 5 games or however many games we've got in the weekend.
Fair enough.
I mean, that has been the best thing though about Super Rugby the last few years is that unpredictability of result. And you look at the weekend, and I would say there are 3 upsets. Most would have thought the Canes would probably win that. Now there's 10 teams that are still eligible for that 6th place, maybe 5th.
I think you're right, Jeb. And all of these long-term hoodoos that existed are getting busted every week, it seems. So, yeah, the Drua winning for the first time in Canberra was just amazing. You could see what that meant to that team and their fans. The Force getting over the Crusaders at home. Each week we seem to have this, and certainly any team on their day can beat any other team in the comp, and we love that. We want every fan group, as I keep saying, look forward to the next weekend thinking their team have got a chance, and it certainly seems to be the way at the moment.
Now, Jack, we'll get to the state of the game and what's happened this year as far as the play and the evolution of the game and the innovations and all of that soon. But when you look at what's happening in the media, certainly in New Zealand over the last few days, the comment is all about Moana Pasifika and the future of Moana Pasifika within this competition. So I thought possibly the best place for us to start with you is maybe just to take a step back, because there is a lot of emotion tied to it, and rightfully so, because there's a lot here as far as jobs and a team and a culture and a lot on the line with this team, a very important team in that way. Where are we at with Moana Pasifika right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a big week, right? And I was lucky enough to be at the Waratahs Moana game on Friday night, and I was out there with Debbie Sorensen and got a real feel for obviously the tough week it's been, and us, like everyone else, our first and the priority is thinking about those individuals that are impacted by the news. And the news is that the owners of Moana Pacifica have said that they can no longer fund the team going forward. But right now, what they are trying to do is find new owners who will come in and take the franchise forward. So from a competition point of view, we are very supportive of that process, very supportive of Moana Pacifica trying to find new owners, and we will do everything we can to support that. So that's where we're at. Our main priority is, as I said, make sure that the people impacted are looked after. It was great to see them and their fans put on such a good show on Friday. You can see the emotion that's going to run out, and they've given every assurance that, regardless of what happens with new ownership or not, they are going to, play through the balance of the season and give it everything they've got.
Is there an element where early notice is probably more helpful for the survival of the team in terms of having that clarity now almost gives that ability, or I suppose the narrative can be spread wider publicly to maybe create opportunities for them to continue?
One of the good things about the news being out there is that it's being broadcast all around the world. So if there are interested parties, and you can see from the rhetoric out there and all the sentiment in social media, if there are interested parties, then this gives them an opportunity to come forward, speak with Moana Pacifica, speak with New Zealand Rugby, to see if we can keep this franchise going.
It really does show the importance of turning up for your team. I suppose bums on seats. Professional sport's pretty ruthless in terms of the bottom line and the ability to, I suppose, break even with getting people to the ground. And I know it's been a big focus of yours in terms of making sure that, that entertainment product is something people look forward to and turn up for.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, these are very expensive businesses to run, and the owners of Moana Pacifica have done a wonderful job in funding them for the last couple of years at a deficit. And that's a massive undertaking from them, and they should be congratulated and thanked for their work in that space. But where does this funding come from? That comes from us generating revenue, and we have to be an entertainment product that drives revenue, and that's been our focus. And I think you've seen the product improve over the last couple of years. You've seen the matchday experience, how much work the clubs have put into that. Things are getting better, but the finances sort of lag the improvements with the product. So for all those passionate fans out there that are really saddened by the news of Moana Pasifika, we absolutely feel for you. But any fan of any team, the way that you can help and make sure that your teams are strong going forward and get even stronger is by getting behind them, is by getting to their games, buying a membership, buying a jersey. That's where the funding comes from, and that's where I think the narrative should be about, not about who is funding who and who hasn't funded who. Well, we need fans to fund Super Rugby Pacific by getting out there and showing their support for the teams, whether they win or they lose. I heard a good saying the other day that fans are there for the good times, but supporters are there for the good and the bad. And that would be my call to action to the fans for the balance of the season, is to get behind your teams. It's really sad, but the one thing you can do is go out and support your team.
The challenge I suppose they've had is they have been to some degree nomadic, and the fans have had a different place to go to week on week on week, which is tough for the fans, isn't it, over time. So the reason I say that is looking forward to the next steps. Do we have deadlines, and do we have things in place where we talk about, hey, you need a home and you need an owner that's sustainable, and you need those kind of things in place?
Yeah, I think they're all really good points, Ross. And any future ownership there'll be conversations about all of those things for sure. So yeah, we have to address some of those issues, and we have to find the right owners. Because you do need deep pockets. But I think you also want to make sure that anything around Moana Pacifica continues on the great work that the current Moana Pacifica done about engaging the community and being about such a bigger purpose than just showing up and playing Super Rugby Pacific on the field.
So do we have a deadline? Is there a time that you need all of this in place so they can participate next year?
Yeah, there are some timeframes, and I'm not going to go into those publicly, but just to rest assured, there are those timeframes, there are those processes in place, and also in the background, all of the contingency planning about, should we not be able to find ownership for MP, then what happens? All of that work is being done in the background and is well placed. 2027, whichever way we go, is going to be another great Super Rugby Pacific season, and all the contingency work is well underway. But we're not going to talk about that publicly because, as I said, our focus is on the individuals that are impacted by this news and supporting Moana Pasifika as they go through this journey to try to find new ownership.
The perception is it's all done. And I suppose it is good to sort of bring the facts to the floor that, there is still a high possibility that they continue.
I don't know exactly what that possibility is, Jim, but as we said, the news is out there. If there are people that are highly passionate, that want to invest in the franchise going forward, there is a window. It's not a huge window, but there is a window. The time is now for us to try to solve for this.
The conversation, of course, has carried on into competition structures. What if we have 10 teams? Could there be a double round robin? I'm presuming that is a challenging thing, a double round robin, because the World Rugby window is got very definite barriers in place.
I've read some of the speculation about what a 10-team comp could look like. Some of them magically turn a year into about 56 weeks rather than 52 weeks, which I would love, because I want as big a window for Super Rugby Pacific as I can get. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk specifics, but there is work that has already been done and that is ongoing, looking at all the possibilities. And, we will certainly be continuing to work that, and through all of the lenses that we've always talked about, what makes sense for fans, what generates value that helps sustain this ecosystem, that then can help clubs thrive and not have to go through these troubling circumstances that we're talking about.
And does that mean, I suppose, the Super Rugby comp and the fans are going to see more things like we saw here at Eden Park on Friday night, which, I don't know Drax Project as a band, but I thoroughly enjoyed the entertainment. You could tell like the crowd wasn't just there for the footy. In terms of that, I suppose the presentation of rugby, that's quite an exciting step forward.
Yeah, I think we've seen a real shift probably in the last 18 months. I think, we've been on a journey, which you've been a part of, Jip, since probably 2002, to focus on the improvement of our core product. So what happens between the white stripes every game. In the last sort of 15 months and really coming to the fore this season is what happens in and around that in stadiums. And the clubs are just doing such great work there to make sure that the experience is more than just about, the great rugby that gets played in Super Rugby Pacific, that the live experience has something for everyone. And so, yeah, if you were lucky enough to go out to Eden Park or have been out in the last couple of rounds, there's great stuff for families and kids down one end of the field. There's the corner, which is all about, entertaining, the younger sort of uni set, if you like, or the teens that want DJs, and there's a spa bath and, the light show and the lights and the laser that went on and the performance. Yeah, there's so much more happening in and around our stadiums now. And I think, again, just encourage people that haven't been out for a while to a super game to get out because, the product is unbelievable, which you're going to talk about. But everything else going on around it is a real thrill as well.
Not to harp on, but they actually played after full time, and it was actually really cool to see people stay around and listen to the performance. Like, it was 3 or 4 songs, but I don't know. I really enjoyed it, and it's probably the first time you've got that Americanized sense to a sporting event, particularly in rugby.
I think it's a broader view of who we're appealing to. We know there are, code heads, as you guys like to call them, that listen to this pod and love chatting about lightning quick ball and all of that. But there are people that just want a great night out or a great afternoon out, right? They want to be entertained. They want to do something with their friends on a weekend. And, we really want to take that broader sort of lens to it because, there are so many people that we can engage with and get them into a stadium and entertain them. Hopefully that brings them into rugby and hopefully, after coming to, maybe 3 or 4 home games that we get them in and we get them loving talking about, loving talking about possession and territory and all the great things that go in the background of our game.
I think a critical part of that, especially in Auckland, where we've seen Auckland FC and the Warriors go so well at their in-ground experience, is probably, I feel like rugby needs to sell itself more on that. Like, these things are happening, but there is a narrative out there that stuff doesn't happen in rugby, it happens in the other places.
Colin Mansfield, CEO of Crusaders, is increasingly frustrated by these people. Go, oh, you should have stuff for the kids, and he's like, oh, we've had stuff for the kids for years. I think there is a bit of, bright and shiny and new. People like talking about the bright and shiny and new, and we've obviously been around for 30 years in New Zealand. We're the bigger code, and therefore we're encumbered with that. But we do have to do a better job of promoting it. We're certainly trying to get out and do a better job of that. I think rugby probably has not promoted itself well enough. And hopefully you're seeing our CEOs of all 5 clubs. Hopefully your fans are sick of hearing from me about what's going on in Super Rugby, because we're certainly trying to do a better job of that. And there's more room to come. We need to continue to get on the front foot and grow visibility and share all the great things that are going on, because not just is that experience so much better now, but we've now got about 3 consecutive years of really good growth in our core metrics off the back of that work, and we're going to continue to push hard.
Yeah, I think word of mouth in the public is also like a big thing, making sure that those rugby fans are trumpeting rugby. Like we certainly in New Zealand have the ability to run ourselves into the ground in rugby because we're so serious about it.
It's something interesting that does happen with rugby, where we got people so passionate about it, but then talk so negatively about it. And we absolutely do, Jip. We absolutely do. And my philosophy on this now with my mates who love to ring me and tell me what I should be doing is I just ask them, I go, hey, have you got your Waratahs membership? And if they say yes, I'm going, right, you're an investor in this code. I'm absolutely all ears. So give it to me. What should we be doing? Because you are invested. You're putting your money where your mouth is. You absolutely should have a crack. But for the mates that go, oh no, I haven't been since the Waratahs last one, and I'm like, well, mate, you're actually not in the tent. Get in the tent. and become part of the solution. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's that humility of rugby. Like we like to rest on our laurels, and actions speak louder than words. But I'm all for it, and I like it's something that I think we need to take responsibility for as well. In the roles we have, is actually we get to experience it every week, and we should be making people well aware of how it is changing and how it's improving for not just the code head like myself. It's definitely an entertainment package.
And the actual core product is unbelievable. We take it for granted that week in, week out, we have some of the best rugby players in the world playing in our backyard. If you're in Dunedin, globally, relatively a small town, I love Dunedin, but you can go down the road, you can walk to the stadium and see the Blues versus the Highlanders and see some of the very best rugby talent on the planet playing in our backyard week in, week out for 19 weeks and playing some of the most attractive rugby that's played on the globe. Like, when you strip it back, how lucky are we? How lucky are we that we've got such proximity to such great code and such passionate fans that go out and see our wonderful clubs.
In Christchurch, another addition to that, I was there last week for a few days, and the walk from the central city to that stadium and the bars on the way and the food on the way and the trip back into town, it reminded me of Cardiff, of how easy it is to roll out of a pub and into the stadium and roll out and back into another pub.
Well, I'm sure there'll be a bit of rolling at Super Round after the 3-day marathon of Super Round. But you're spot on, and for Super Round, that walkway down the boulevard there from Riverside to the stadium is going to be a full fan trail, and beyond all the restaurants and bars that are already there, there's going to be buskers and entertainers and things like that. So yeah, it's going to be such a wonderful, addition to Christchurch, the stadium. We're really excited to get down there next weekend for Super Round, but it's going to change the whole experience for Cantabrians going to support the Crusaders. And, I'm sure we're going to see a big spike in their crowds week in, week out.
Let's talk about the innovation. I mean, we've seen some changes within the rules and little tweaks here and there, and year on year on year, we're seeing less downtime, we're seeing less referee interaction, and we're seeing more game time. And it appears to be working like for the game. All those little tweaks are getting there without eliminating scrums, without eliminating lineouts, without all of those things that people say are happening. It seems to be working.
Yeah, and it's been a journey, right? I think since 22 was probably where the competition and everyone sort of got together and said, okay, we need some serious work here. So since the end of the 22 season, this has been a continual journey. Great work done by a lot of people to get it to the space where we are now. But we now are looking really closely at everything we can do just to get the minutiae changes now, because we've sucked a lot of that static time out now. And we are now maximizing ball in play time. So to give you kind of listeners a few sort of stats here, if we look at our total match duration back in 22, we were 94 minutes. We're now 89 minutes. And then the mix of that, so our total match has shrunk by 5 minutes, but then the mix within it, we've cut a hell of a lot of static time, circa 10 minutes, and increased a hell of a lot of ball in play time. And I don't think anyone misses that static time. As you say, we've still got about 12 scrums a game. We've still got about 21 penalties a game. We've still got the same amount of lineouts, but we've just got rid of all that niggly downtime that no one really liked. And when we did our fan research, they said, let's do away with that. And I think that's the sort of high level metrics about, what time is and where time has gone. But I think the interesting stuff is, well, what has that then done? There's that's 10 minutes less rest for the players. That's meant that the whole game is sped up and opportunities have become more. We're seeing that through our points and the number of tries increasing and things like that.
Like, I think it is an important story to tell around the scrums, because they are pretty much the same as previous, but it's where they're coming from. So it's not coming from a not straight. So you're not going from a static set piece to another static set piece. That's going to a quick tap or a tap play or whatever whatever it may be, that the scrums are actually coming from expansive play, playing at tempo against fatiguing bodies, chancing your arm, and then there's a knock on. And then, you know, if the scrum isn't in and out, you know, we've seen I love the quick tap. Every defence coach hates it, I know. And if I was a defence coach, I wouldn't be a fan either. But I just think you saw last night in the Brumbies Drua game, and you saw the Moana Pasifika game. It's just, you just have to be on the job as a player. And I just think it's really brought an exciting lens whilst keeping the traditions, because you think about South Africa, you think about the Northern Hemisphere, they really probably look at these rules and think it's a little bit T20 like, you know, like they want to be, but I think to try and explain to people that the essence of the game still remains, we're just trying to play it at a tempo that may lead to scrums in a different narrative.
Yeah, we want contest. We want great contest because that's what rugby is, and that's what sets rugby apart from our competition. What we just want more of it. We want more contest and things like, you know, even the getting out of the channel for the kickers. You know, we're seeing an aerial contest a lot more than we did before. So we're all for contest. We want more contest, and we want more contest to just happen quicker with a flow of the game that is quicker. So yeah, I mean, I'm really thrilled with where it's at, and just on the quick tap ones, Jib. You know, we know from fan research that the highest high moments that gets people's you know, brains getting triggered and getting excited is tries. The second one is quick taps. Because of that risk reward of a quick tap as a halfback, has he blown an opportunity to take three or whatever that might be. So, you know, we've gone this year off the back of that rule. Our free kicks have gone up 2.9 last season to 5.8 this year. But it hasn't come at the expense of number of scrums or number of lineouts, which we think is a really, really great thing. You know, the free kick around scrum time's tough, you know, I get that. And, you know, we'll continue to look at that and think about that.
You've just got to get creative as a player, you know, like there will be a solution and coaches will do it. But I also think, like, with the increased quick taps, probably less time kicking for penalties, you know, like, because, you know, and sometimes it is a disaster and you're like, oh my God, why did I take that quick tap? But I think that's what you're saying, is that edge of your seat stuff for both players, coaches and fans. I think at some stages it's, I just think, I suppose the question is, how much more can you squeeze out of this versus how much more do we squeeze out of the Drax projects and I suppose that entertainment product?
When we're now at sort of 89-minute match duration, we got ball in play getting up towards sort of 40 minutes. You know, I think what we're going to do is get to a stage where we're redlining the players so much that we're actually, you know, increasing error rate, which then will give us more static time as we then go to stats. So I think we are getting close to reaching that sort of that point, that red line point. You know, I still get frustrated. Sometimes there's still a couple of seconds here and there with a TMO review, or let's get that scrum going, but I think we are kind of reaching that. So, you know, we do have to think about, you know, what else around it, as you say, in stadium. But I do also think we can look at innovation that's not necessarily law-based, that might help us continue to grow that excitement. And you know, I'd be real. I mean, I know your DMs guys get full of great ideas, and you know, I'd be really interested to hear, you know, what things we could add to our arsenal. There's things like, you know, could you have a power play like you have in T20, to use your reference, Jib, to go, actually, off this set piece, we're going to double down and it's more points, right? Now, I know the traditionalists of rugby will go, oh my God, this bloke is a moron. What is he talking about? But let's talk about those things. Let's throw them up. Maybe we don't trial them in Super Rugby, but maybe we trial them in another competition somewhere and see what we can do. But you know, rugby, you know, Super Rugby, since its inception, has driven innovation into the code. It's part of our DNA. We want to continue on that journey and continue to look at what we can do to take the code forward and make it more fan-centric.
There is I suppose, more of a lean of World Rugby towards supporting a lot of the innovations that have come through Super Rugby at that international level.
World Rugby's been nothing but supportive of what we've put up. And, you know, And then in the background, then supporting us with insight around what we've done and great discussion with the other leagues around the world and the other competitions around the world. So they definitely, World Rugby are definitely adopting the fan centricity, model and trying to get that more central to the decision making for the code as a whole. I guess the balance to that is that we do need to make sure that our players are going to step into a black jersey or a gold jersey, or a white jersey with the Drua, and not have too much change so that they can go out there and win, because we want that too. If I had my way, we'd all of the nations that we represent will be doing bloody well in World Cup in Australia in 27. So we've got to get that right, and also we know that fans, whilst they want innovation in Super Rugby Pacific, they don't want too much, because keeping up with law change is really difficult. And the further you are away from the game, if you're not a real code head, it's really difficult to rock up. And, the amount of times I've sat in a stadium and someone's gone, not straight. And then I'm sort of turning around trying to explain, what have we done over the last year to make sure that uncontested line out that's not straight, people understand that, right? And so it does take time. So we've got to get those things right in the right balance. But World Rugby have been great. There's no doubt that some nations that dominate certain aspects of the game want those aspects of the game protected at all costs, and that's fair enough. I guess our kind of rhetoric and our push is, regardless of what your national team looks like at this point in time, we can all learn lots from fans, and we're willing to try some things down here in Super Rugby, and all of the leagues in the world can benefit from that learning. They don't have to adopt what we've done, but they can learn from it if they like. That's our kind of our position to World Rugby and to the other leagues.
Yeah, I think it would be short-sighted, though, of those nations that want the driving maul or the scrum, to think that these laws, like, there's still heaps of hookers scoring tries. Gosh, I wish we did mauls like this back when I was playing. But there's a hell of a lot of maul tries. There's, and if they don't get over it, can lead to yellow card, penalty try. Like those, I do really want to make it public, that, because the perception is that that's not happening, and not everyone's going to watch every game like us. But it is, like, that essence of the game is still well and truly there, and the players and captains are in control of taking it there.
If a coach and a club wanted to play a certain way, you beauty. We want all styles of how you play this great game and how you compete in that contest. We're not removing contests. I think there's obviously some differences. I mean, we're playing start in mid-February. It's hot. The grounds are hard. They're dry. So there's a lot of environmental conditions. There's also the fact we are in the Pacific, and we've grown up playing the game in a certain way, right? So I think we've got to remember that there are those differences to the environment and culturally how the game's been played historically in our part of the world versus up north. But we want different styles playing. We don't want 11 teams playing all the same style, and I don't think we've got that. We know we've got teams that love coming through to the front door and love the forward game. The Blues a good example of that, and others that want to play as fast and as expansive as possible. And we know you're not going to win Super Rugby Pacific only playing one style well. You're going to have to be pretty bloody good across all the contests to win this comp.
The perfect example of that was the Drua on the weekend. They hardly entered the 22 and they kicked 3 penalties to beat the Brumbies.
Yep.
Like, one of the least Fijian things that you can possibly imagine. But they know that they can play that other way if they need to, and it gets them across the line, especially when it's bucketing down in Lautoka. Sometimes you've got to do it.
Absolutely. And so, I think we've got the game set up to a place that is got rid of the static time, all of the stuff that people have told us they don't want to be sitting in front of their TV screen or in a stadium watching. We've got rid of that. The game is well set up to choose your style, to play whatever style you want, but do so knowing that we're going to move the game forward. So, if you're going to play that way, just be ready, because we're not going to let people sit down and take a break.
What we will do is we'll say to the fans, because we've talked about it, please send us through in the comments section things that you would like to add, off the field innovations, those kind of things. Send them through. We'll make sure that Jack and NZR and the ARU get these things in front of them, because trust me, I've sent those emails through.
We're unashamedly open, and we want the ideas. I mean, this whole conversation is about making this competition, more attractive for fans. Unashamedly, we need to do that to raise more money so that we don't have to go through the circumstances we're going through with Moana Pasifika. So I make no exception for being greedy on the money side. The way I can do that is to make sure that our product is as good as it can be, that attracts people to come and spend their money. So we're all ears, and there's no bad ideas. We're gonna have a look at a lot of things going forward and see what we add to our arsenal. And for me, again, like, the core product is unbelievable. It's just all the other layers that we want to add that give you guys something more to talk about, give your listeners something more to talk about around the water cooler. And whether that's, fantasy, whether that's Player of the Year awards, whether that's whatever these ideas might be, we want to continue to add all of those things into the mix, because it just gives more people more opportunity to engage and talk about and get excited about their club, their players, and the competition.
What I like in the IPL is that you can see the player who is the top run scorer, the top wicket taker. They wear a piece of something on them, whether it's a hat or whatever it might be. There is no reason why we can't have an armband on, Whiniar Nanofo, or, on the top point scorer, or the person leading the MVP race right now, so people can see them and they go, geez, you've got the armband on this week. And it costs
nothing. Mind it. That's a great idea. I mean, all of these things, like, let's get them out there. Let's see which fans want to take forward and make it happen. There's nothing holding us back on some of these things. As you say, some of these ideas don't cost anything. They're just about us getting everyone aligned and moving forward.
Well, you already know my Ranfurly Shield and Super Rugby idea. And a couple
Throw it
of
out
others,
there. Throw it out there. I'd be interested to hear what your listeners think about it.
We threw it at them last year. I'm happy for them to see it again, because I just think it's great. Like, I don't want too many trophies, because I know I like the Gordon Hunter Trophy, and I like the new Carver Bowl that came in for Joey Levendery in the Blues. We can't have every single game having a trophy lift, but what we do need is hero moments, because hero moments is what it's all about. That's why we remember the Jordan flu game. That's why we remember, those kind of things, because it's hero moments, those little things you can hang your hat on. And I feel like something like a Ranfurly Shield within the competition would be amazing, where this thing is on the line and it builds history week on week on week. So those kind of things would change the game.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. We can call it the Aotearoa Rugby Pod Shield.
Yeah.
Well, I like it. I think one sort of catchphrase we have and we think about a lot is, how do we make more matches matter? And I think that's kind of what you're leaning into there, Ross. Like, we know we've got the historic derbies, that go really well in this competition, but we need all 83 games meaning something. So, they certainly do mean something, but we need them to mean more often. So, those sorts of ideas are certainly worth exploring to see how we continue to do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Jack, for all your time. We really appreciate it.
No problem, guys. And just really looking forward about to Super Round. Talk about, I think, a milestone moment for the competition. Opening that new stadium, that's going to create a lot of memories for a lot of people. And 3 near sold out. I think we've only got a couple of tickets left for Sunday. So it's really exciting, and can't wait to get down there. And no doubt I'll bump into a few of your listeners and look forward to hearing their ideas on what we should do going forward.